Hey, hello there. Welcome to Talking with Tony. We're on YouTube now after 13 years of being under Wow's umbrella. It's nice to be away from them, from the anti-hero, if you will. And you found the hero tonight, and the guest is Brandon Hughes, the award-winning author Brandon Hughes. And I can say that now, and it's absolutely true. You might remember Brandon visiting with us not only in studio, but also on Zoom for his first novel. And we talked about that. And look, first rule, the hero rule, first book, fabulous. The one we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, though, even better. And I know that might be hard for the author to sit there and hear, but it's just true. And I think the feedback that he's going to get from people who read this second book, The Fourth Prisoner, are going to agree with me. The Fourth Prisoner, there was nothing wrong with the initial offering, but The Fourth Prisoner takes it up to another level. It's the second book in the series that features not Andy Griffith, but Barclay Griffith. That'll get a little smile from the author's face. A little bit about the author, though. He knows every line that's ever been made from any Seinfeld episode and any Andy Griffith episode. If you ask him what his two favorite shows are, Seinfeld and Andy Griffith. If you ask me, Tony Jones, your host, Seinfeld and Andy Griffith are my favorite two, but I can't repeat lines from episodes like this genius can that we've got tonight. He is an award-winning author because already the hero rule has received accolades, and Barclay Griffiths is like one of the favorite characters from any book ever. And just recently, he submitted or has at least won the award from a Nashville magazine. I want to start with that, actually, because this is kind of like a breaking news kind of deal. Tell us a little bit about this, about the next Mrs. Roberts.
Yeah, well, Killer Nashville is a crime book conference, I guess they have annually in Nashville, and they publish a magazine and it's really grown. It's just a few years old now, and it's really taken off. And they've got a lot of the heavy hitters from that industry in there. It's a few thousand people attended every year, and they're always looking for content. And I had a short story, Anthony, you read it, and a while back, just kind of sitting there because I'll get thoughts in my head sometimes about a story, and I'll just sit down and bang something out. And I saw this opportunity to submit something, and they chose it for this month's magazine. And it's, they choose a single short story to highlight a fiction short story, and I got that.
When you say you just bang it out, like how long do you remember that taking you? Is that something that happened in a few hours, one day, or multiple days? What was that?
Short story. That particular one took me, I don't know, just a handful of hours. Now, that's just to get it out. And I can't remember. It was just a few thousand words. I mean, it wasn't very long. But I'll write it and I'll let it sit for a few days, and I'll go back and tweak it here and there. But I liked it. I mean, it just kind of, it's one of those things. And there's another writing prompt out there that's called the first line, and they'll give you a line, and the idea is if your story starts with this particular line. So that's what I took was, I believe that the line was the story was supposed to start with the second Mrs. Roberts. So you get that and you run through your head, all right, what can this story be about? And I just got an idea and just started typing it. And it really, I think, turned out pretty nice. I'm not a big short story writer.
Let me push back on that. Let me push back on that a little bit, because there's a couple more that come to my mind pretty quickly that I really enjoyed. The one where you couldn't cut the grass on the Wednesday, the violation and all. And forgive me for not knowing immediately what the title of that was. And then also, wouldn't it also qualify as a short story for the woman who the kidnap and all that was going on? And I think the setting where was this the one where they were at a bar watching the Brewers in a baseball game, and he got notified?
Yeah, it's funny. That one's called The Red Room, and I just kind of had this idea, and I didn't think that. And the Red Room is there's some talk is it real or not, but it's this on the dark web where people are murdered, and for viewers. And I just kind of had this idea. I just really woke up in the middle of the night. Says, what if? Now the story is pretty dark. Now it's a lot tamer than what my initial idea was. But I think what I initially wrote was a short story, about 10,000 words. It ended like I wanted to end it. But I had some feedback that says, man, you really left me on a cliffhanger. And well, the idea was what really happened after that's not really critical. The story's about what led up to that. But it got me thinking maybe there is a book here. So back a few months ago, I just sat down and just say, all right, what can we do with this? And I turn it into, I think, I finished it. It's sitting at around 70 some odd thousand words. So it's a little shorter than what I normally write. I've not gone back to do a edits or second draft on it, but I think that may be my next book to come out after The Fourth Prisoner.
Well, it's had an impact on me because I had a friend about 2 months ago asked me if I would go up to a mountain home that his parents had that they don't use anymore, that's still owned them by the family, though. And the parents are just too old. I said, I don't have anything to do with that. If you go up there and you check things out and you make sure nobody's like inhibiting that place, I'll be totally fine with it. So I don't want to give away too much of the story because it sounds like you're going to go with a novel with this and all. But just be aware, if you own some property somewhere that's been in the family a long time, make sure there's nobody else that's like occupying it and doing some things that they shouldn't be doing. How about that?
Yeah, and like I said, it was a fun little departure. It was a fun little departure from what I normally write, and it was just different. And like I said, a little darker, and something. I don't know. I had fun writing it, and who knows? Maybe it kind of opens up another avenue to explore.
We're going to challenge Jake tonight. He's our producer. He's in Noonan, Georgia, because he's done such a great job of putting up everybody's football picks, and usually, if not the mascot, you'll see the initials of the team and all. We're going to go back and forth with that, as well as talk to Brandon. Brandon may have a few picks as well. So before I talk some Seinfeld with Brandon, I want to release Brian Lundquist, our TWT West Coast correspondent. He's 26-33 for the season, so he's sub 500. Here are his picks for the week, though. He likes Michigan -4.5 at Penn State. He's got the Alabama Crimson Tide favored by 10.5 at Kentucky. Colorado, he's going with primetime plus 10.5 against Arizona. Florida State, he likes the Seminoles -14.5. That seems to be a very popular pick these days. Tennessee is playing Missouri in one of the top games of the weekend. The Vols -1. Now, he's got a master's degree from Tennessee, but he did go with the Tennessee Volunteers. He's taken Washington -8.5 in a game that has some national championship implications there against Utah, or at least college football playoff potential implications. He's on the Ole Miss Rebels plus 10.5 at UGA. Oregon is his 5-star. The Oregon Ducks -15 against Southern California. And in the NFL, he's going with the New England Patriots over in Germany +2. The San Francisco 49ers -3 at Jacksonville. And then the Chargers +1.5 at home against the Lions. We're going to get later on in the show to Stormy's picks, to my picks, and to our college and pro football lead analyst Danny Ark's picks as well. I want to pivot just for a moment to Seinfeld. I know this is an unfair question, but sometimes when someone loves, like we've had a guest that just loves the Rolling Stones so much, and I say, okay, you can take a disc that has 3 songs and that's it. So here's the deal. I'm going to put it, this is a bit unfair to you, but it's concerning Seinfeld. If you were on this proverbial island, away from everybody, but you have all kind of batteries that you can watch 3 Seinfeld episodes whenever you want to, only 3. Which 3 are you taking to this proverbial island?
Man, I don't know. It'd probably be easier for me to say, tell me which 3 you'd leave off, that type thing. Gosh, I don't know. For me, Seinfeld, there are some really, really good episodes, but I'm very much just the brilliance of just pieces of episodes. Just, there are just certain parts, and it may be a 30-second long interaction where you feel like, oh my God, that's just fantastic. It's fantastic writing, acting. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin to single out episodes. I think we talked the one where. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, is it because I'm going to get you to do the Andy Griffith Show as well. So in your mind, be pedaling as you talk about Seinfeld. Be thinking about which ones you might choose for the Andy Griffith Show as well. Now, you were about to say we've talked in the past about one episode, I guess.
Yeah, the episode where, and I can't, where it's Jerry's dating a girl who likes the Dockers.
And just comes up, Kramer goes, Cotton Dockers.
Cotton Dockers. But that whole episode is just, it's a brilliant, and it's just one after the, I think I told you when I watch them on Netflix, I'll just go back, and it could take me 45, 50 minutes to an hour to get through a single episode because I'm rewinding, I'm rewatching, I'm doing this, that, and the other. So, and that's one of those episodes where it's just, time after time after time after time. They're just bit after bit after bit. It's just fantastic.
I'm usually on the same page with you about episodes and sharing things with you. There is an episode that you like that I can't stand, and that's called The Chinese Restaurant.
I like that episode. I like the limo. I think is probably in the top 3. When they get the limousine from the airport. Yeah, and
let's
again,
talk
just
about
so
that.
many.
Are you Dylan Murphy? I mean, who would you be here?
O'Brien. I'm not the Nazi.
No, I am not O'Brien.
George says, I think she liked me. And what's Jerry's response? She's a Nazi, George.
She's a Nazi, George. Absolutely. Yeah. And,
but I remember when I was a kid, because I watched it when it came out. I was in high school, and the part on that where he just says, all right, look, when they slow down, we'll jump out. And he says, who are you, Mannix? That's a dated reference, but that's always gotten me.
Yeah. No one's ever died in the street, right? So, rock and roll there. But no, you're right. That's probably in my top 3 as well. So that's interesting that you name that. I know for a fact that's in my wife's top 3. She loves that episode. I love when he's reading when the young woman comes in and gets in the limo. He's reading the speech, and after he reads this portion, Jerry goes over to him and says, "You're not going to open with that, are you?"
The Zionist ways or something.
Yeah. And he answers the phone. Who's responsible for the AstroTurf? The Jews. The Jews. I mean, it is a fabulous episode. And I kind of needed that laugh because I've been so upset with what people in Israel are going through right now. But to Jerry Seinfeld's credit, he is Jewish, obviously, but one of the few actors in Hollywood who's made a stance, because there's Susan Sarandon was at this pro-Palestinian rally and all. At least Jerry Seinfeld gets the big picture here of the tragedies going on in Israel.
Well, not to divert on that, but I'm convinced that people on the college campuses, these celebrities, they have no clue what's going on. It just is the cool thing right now to be on the Palestine side. For whatever reason, that's just, it's cool to be that. And if you were to ask them any question about what's going on and what they're fighting for and all that, they wouldn't even have a clue, which is, it's pretty disheartening to watch. And particularly in Hollywood, that is, that's a Jewish town. And for these folks to stand up and just not support, their brothers and sisters in their industry is pretty sad.
Yeah, so I'm proud of Jerry Seinfeld from that. Okay, I know it puts you on the spot, but can you come up with a couple of more episodes now that you've had just a little bit of time to think about it?
Gosh, I like the pilot. I know you're not a big on the pilot. I don't know if that's top 3.
Are you talking pilot, the very first episode of the Seinfeld Chronicles, or the pilot that they pitched to NBC?
No, the Seinfeld Chronicles, when the girl's coming into town and they're just, getting ready for.
Don't give her an option.
Why you give this is a girl I might like, not How to Score on Spring Break.
That's good. No, that is a good episode. Not nowhere in my top 30, but yeah, that's a good episode. I like the one where Kramer is like he's knocked out this guy, and the bus driver is falling out himself and stuff. So he jumps on and he's driving the bus, and he goes, I am Batman. And he says something about, you can't make the stops. And he goes, they kept ringing the bell.
And that's the one where Kramer's girlfriend is booing and hissing Jerry in the
that is right,
in the audience. So he goes down to her, office, and as the prop comic tells Jerry, hey, you ought to go down there. And he said, you're like Rosa Parks, if you go down and heckle her. Right. And Toby is the lady's name, and she runs out and loses her pinky toe. But talking about episodes, the episode where Jerry has the dream and he writes down the joke and flaming globes of Sigmund, I think that's a fantastic episode. And they go see
and he says San Antonio.
Yeah, I thought he was.
It's fun to go down.
Yeah, Kramer's like, no, he got out.
Go down memory lane. Yeah, that's good. All right. So to speed things up, all right, you don't just give me one of your top three Andy Griffith episodes.
The cow thief is maybe my number one. The cow thief, just
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dogs
You could have given me
is
20
up there.
guesses there.
Really?
Okay. I can see a little bit more of that. Now you're not really in my wheelhouse yet. I've got about 10 that I would want, and neither one of those would have made it.
Yeah. The cow thief, dog stalk, and we've talked about this, but for me, Man in a Hurry, it's not the funniest episode by far, but man, it's great, and it's my far and away my favorite epilogue. And for so many years, up until really a few years ago, we were deprived of the. I don't think people realized Andy Griffith Show had an epilogue until I think it was one Super Bowl. That WTBS used to run the marathon on Super Bowl Sunday, and this was probably 20 years ago or more. They made a big deal of, we're going to show the epilogues. And now, most times they show it, you get to see it, or it's on, when it was on Netflix or Amazon or wherever it streams, you can watch it. But that to me is the best, is my favorite epilogue of them all. And then, Countess Van Telecky is ranks up there for sure. Probably a top
Opie's
five episode for me. Opie, yeah, Three Wishes for Opie.
Up there close for me would be Opie and the Birdman. And, he didn't really want to release the birds, Incan, Blinken, and Nod. But once he does, it says the cage is empty. And then Andy says, yeah, but don't the trees sound full. I mean, that to me is very poignant thing there. Great writing.
Yeah. And I think it would probably on a fan vote, I bet Opie the Birdman may be the number one episode for fans. But, it's just, and it's not like, again, it's not the funniest, but it's just, like you said, it's just so well written in the life lesson. And it's just, and the times really where Andy and Opie kind of bond, like when Opie's charity ranks up there for me for sure. And, Andy just thinks Opie's being, right. he thinks he's being a skinflint, and won't give any money until he finds out, about it. And another along those lines, Mr. McBeevy, not my favorite episode or up there, but that part
it's up there for me, top five. Really? I know where you're going, so I want to let me interrupt you because I know where you're going. You're going to go. Certainly, you don't believe in all that. That the man swings from the trees and he jingles, but he tells Barney, he goes, "No, but I believe in Opie."
That's right. That hits you hard. That's a top three moment for me for sure. And Andy Griffith episodes. I mean, that's just such a great, because Andy's so wise, and it's interesting. Like in Opie's charity, you don't see much of. Andy's kind of not made the fool. That's too strong of a word, but he's he didn't get it right, and that's unusual for that.
Yeah, especially when he's usually saving Barney from some catastrophe.
Right.
My number one is Aunt Bee's Pickles, the pickle episode. That's my top episode, and for me just great writing again. Shoe fly, he's dead. Or you can't be serious. You want her to make another batch of those kerosene cucumbers?
That's right.
I know an epilogue that I don't know if you were referencing this but the Man in a Hurry, I know you love about this is because I know you. When he's about to leave, he just looks up at the different faces of the rest of the folks that live in Mayberry. That's pretty touching to you, isn't it?
It is, and it's like they're no different. And he just, to that point, he just hasn't understood, and he gets it. Opie's taught. It's just, I don't really like it clicks with him. And the epilogue is earlier in the episode. Andy's on the porch, celebrates peeling an apple without breaking the peel, in one long piece. And he just, the Man in a Hurry just says, Malcolm Tucker just says, well, good for you. I mean, he's just clearly not impressed. Well, in the epilogue, they're on the back patio just playing the guitar and singing, and it pans back, and Malcolm Tucker's falling asleep in the rocking chair, and he's holding an apple, and the peel is hanging off. He's done it. So
that's good.
Convicts at Large is also probably up there for sure in the top 3, 4, 5 episode for me. Big Maul Tyler.
I've got you here to discuss, of course, the fourth prisoner. I want to run down Stormy Weathers' picks, though. He's 24-25 against the spread this season. He's going to skip the opening game and go right to his 5-star, which is Alabama minus 10.5. He likes Arizona at Colorado minus 10.5. Florida State said it was a popular play. It's minus 14.5. He goes with the Tennessee Vols, just like Brian did, favored by 1. He's on Washington as well, minus 8.5. He likes Ole Miss plus 10.5 against Georgia. That's interesting that both of them are on there, and they both like Oregon minus 15. His NFL picks is the Patriots plus 2 over in Germany, the Jacksonville Jaguars catching 3 at home against the 49ers, and the Chargers plus 1.5. I'll give you my picks before I give you Danny's picks. I am still having a great year. I split my last 8 games, 37-25, though, against the spread. That's better than anybody in the country. That's better than anybody you'll see on ESPN. Van Pelt's under 500. Stanford Steve is way under 500. All the people in the Daily Wager on ESPN really struggling. The Yahoo people really struggling. But I am 12 games over 500, feeling very blessed. I've got Kentucky plus 10.5 is my first selection against Alabama. I'm going to go with Colorado plus 10.5 against Arizona. I don't know why, but I am. I'm going with the Pitt Panthers minus 3, and that's a little bonus game. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm not taking the UCLA Bruins this week to have the old mascot leaning up against the L, but this is a good-looking Panther, and Jake always finds the best-looking mascots to go with the Pitt Panthers minus 3. I've got Auburn plus 2.5 against Arkansas, and a couple of pro picks for you, the Las Vegas Raiders plus 1.5, and I'm going opposite of the other guys. I'm going with the Detroit Lions minus 1.5. I am 3-0-1 against the spread in English Premier League picking. Folks, that's undefeated. That's pretty dang good. I'm going to give you a Saturday and a Sunday selection. The Saturday selection is under 3 goals. Tottenham versus Wolverhampton. So that's the Spurs versus the Wolves, go under 3. And on Sunday, I'm going over 2.5 with West Ham United and Nottingham Forest. 3-0-1. It's hard to beat that in soccer. Brandon, I showed you the list of football games that the panel was picking earlier. Was there anything that jumped out at you?
I think we're all pretty in line with those other 2 guys, not with you. I certainly like Alabama over Kentucky. I saw something today actually said Kentucky is 1-17 against top 10 teams under Stoops in the last 10. I think they're 1-9. The average margin of victory or average score is like 37-9. So, but I do like Georgia a lot over Ole Miss. And the one I'm having trouble with, I'll be honest, is Miami, Florida State. I think Florida State's going to do it, but man, 14.5, that half point, and it's a rivalry game. I know it's at FSU. Something's telling me to that Miami's going to stay within the number, but I just don't know. I'll stay away from NFL. I can't, because I don't like NFL from the standpoint. I mean, I enjoy watching it from the standpoint of all they're trying to do is win the game. And man, those backdoor covers happen all the time because, like I said, they're interested. If they can win by 2, they'll win by 2. If they're up by 4, they'll take a safety or whatever. So, I don't pay. I stay away from that. But college, I enjoy.
We're going to talk fourth prisoner now. I'm still going to reveal our lead college and pro football analyst, Danny Art's picks. He's 41-33 a little bit later in the program. Brandon, the fourth prisoner, I want to applaud you for this excellent book. And I also worked really hard at it. You did research. And I'm going to let you tell what needs to be told about the story. But I do want to share with the viewers that because of the escape at Alcatraz, and you were doing your research for this book, you actually were able to get in touch with a surviving guard that had worked at Alcatraz. That's pretty phenomenal stuff. And what were you able to discuss with him?
When I had this idea, and this idea has been in my head for years, and it was the idea that, we know the story of the 3 prisoners, the Escape from Alcatraz movie. But my thought was, well, what if fourth guy, what if somebody made it? And, I had the history where I had to stick to it. I wasn't going to I didn't feel like I could make, a fictional escape. I wanted to tie it in to give it some authenticity. So the challenge was really, well, how do I get this fourth guy off the island with history not knowing about it? So I just started watching, just generally trying to get some ideas when I write about the escape, just some details. And I started watching as many documentaries as I could find, a lot of YouTube, reading a lot online. And I saw an interview with a guard, and I just looked him up on Facebook and reached out to him. And he was in his 90s, and he was said he'd be happy to talk to him. And we talked for 30, 40 minutes and just talked a lot about life on Alcatraz, prisoner movement, that type thing. I posed some questions. He, how did you keep up with everybody? Tell me about the counts and just all that. So he was just able to offer a lot of, I'd been to Alcatraz before as a tourist. So spatially, I understood it, and it made sense. I knew what it looked like, and again, just the spatial feel for it. And I've seen the cells where they escaped from, but to hear from a guard's perspective and hear a lot of the logistical stuff was really helpful. It was really neat to talk to the guy. In fact, I'm not really big on acknowledgments in the back of the book because you're invariably going to leave somebody out. But I made special mention of him in this book and the help he provided.
The fourth prisoner is what we're discussing tonight with author Brandon Hughes. And it gets off to one heck of a beginning. I mean, from the very point you were just, pulling for these folks in this house. And I got to be careful and respect your wishes. But there is, from the setting that happens, there is one very fortunate survivor. Can you discuss that just a little bit without giving up too much of the story?
Oh, you're talking about from the house in the second chapter?
Yeah.
Yes. And, the book is ultimately about a 60-year-old cold case, right? So outside of the first two chapters, it takes place in present day. The first chapter is the escape from Alcatraz in 1962. Fast forward a year later, we're in this, fictional town, Alabama, in November of 1963. And there is just a family is murdered pretty brutally. And this one of the daughters, she manages to escape, or I say escape, she manages to avoid the killer, right? Mm-hmm. And she's ultimately found, and that leads to some things further that's uncovered in the cold case that nobody knew about back then. But the case really is about solving the family that was murdered in that house, because the killer was never found. And never prosecuted, never arrested. That case was stayed open, and it was very hurtful to this town. It was something that changed this town forever. And so that's really what the book is about, is that cold case investigation.
And Barclay Griffith, the district attorney, is kind of coming into his own because he's sort of been handed off this position. The DA woman, it's not Maggie, but for some reason Maggie's coming to mind. But
that's
she's
right.
on her way.
Maggie Gamble.
Okay. Well,
Maggie Gamble, right.
Then, okay. She's on her way out and all. This is, I want to say, he's like her protege. And what's Barclay Griffith finding out about himself at this time, Brandon?
Well, you mentioned it being the second in a series. And, the one thing I'll say is it can stand alone. It certainly is the same kind of universe as the hero rule, the first book. But there's no spoilers in it. You don't have to have read the first to read this one, and there's no spoilers or anything like that. So, but you do see this growth in Barclay. And then he just wants to do right. And he gets this, Maggie, his protege is retiring and he's being appointed. And she makes the point that her biggest professional regret is not, because she has a personal relationship to this case that she tells him about. And, it's just her, she leaves with him, says, I could never do it. And time thing, technology thing, whatever, she just wasn't able to get it. And she just asked him, hey, will you do this for me? So he takes that on and just takes it very personally. And he feels like, hey, look, now that I'm in and this is something we're going to accomplish, and we're going to go all out. And he learns a lot about the cold case process, about the investigative process. And, I don't want to give too much away, but it's quite a journey. And then
go ahead.
I was going to say it becomes personal for him, and as well, and just by the nature of who he is and what he is as a prosecutor.
He has a talented staff that helps him as well. I mean, look, they were not limited in their resources at all, and there's a couple key figures that play prominent roles there. Yes,
there's somebody that Maggie had actually brought on as a retired State Bureau of Investigations cold case investigator. She brought him on initially while she was still as the DA to get him to look at some things. So she tells Barclay, hey, if you want a resource, here's this guy that you can talk to. And he just has his own investigator. And there are just a couple of other investigators that, from the police department that get involved. And But yeah, no, he's by no means the leader of this. He's the leader, I guess, in that the group needs a leader and an organizer. But it's these investigators that really go through and meet with all former police officers from back then and just townsfolk. And then we get into genealogy, DNA, which is a big thing now, technology wise. And I know it's pretty interesting.
Look, you've been on television sets in the past, cases that have that you've solved, but that have been shown on 48 Hours. You've been some afternoon television as well. You've got 20 years of knowledge in this. How that to me seems extremely beneficial in being able to write these books and make these books authentic and break it down where the viewers, it's TV, where the reader is able to understand.
Yeah, I mean, my goal when I first started writing, and I started this journey many, many years ago, but my first goal was to make it authentic. I wanted it to be real. And when there's an author named Jillian Hoffman, I read her book. I think it was her first book called Retribution, and it was so real. And then I started researching her and realized she was a prosecutor down in Miami. And that's when I said, a book can be real and it can be authentic and it can be very good. So yeah, that's what I bring to the table is the evidence is real. The evidence does not give up more than it could. I mean, this isn't CSI on TV. I mean, everything, time frame, what you get, the dialogue, especially, I just, it's not always pretty, and the process isn't always pretty. I mean, it's cops and prosecutors and bad guys, and it's real. It's gritty.
Yeah. And it's exceptional. We've got about 3 minutes and we'll come back to wrap it up with Brandon here in a little bit, but I have to get to Danny's picks. Danny's 41-33 against the spread. That's the most wins out of anyone, including myself. Now I'm percentage better because I don't pick as many games. So I'm 37-25, but Danny's got 41 wins. He should be applauded for that. He's going with Penn State plus 4.5 in that first game, that Michigan-Penn State game. His 5-star, he agrees with Brandon, Alabama minus 10.5. He likes Arizona minus 10.5 against Colorado. He is like everyone else is on Florida State plus 14.5, but he differs. He goes with Missouri against Tennessee plus 1. He is Washington minus 8.5, making it unanimous. He's a Georgia Bulldog, so he's going with the Bulldogs minus 10.5. He likes the USC Trojans, Southern Cal, fight on, as they say, plus 15. And in the NFL, the New England Patriots makes it unanimous plus 2. The San Francisco 49ers, he goes with minus 3. And the Chargers, he makes it unanimous under the panel plus 1.5. Remember, I'm opposite there. I'm on the Detroit Lions minus 1.5. My other NFL pick was a bonus pick with the Raiders plus 1.5. So repeating their 5-stars, Alabama's 5-star for Danny minus 10.5. So was Stormy's 5-star minus 10.5 at Alabama, and Brian's going with Oregon minus 15 for his 5-star. If you had a 5-star, Brandon, would it be Alabama or would it be Georgia?
I think Alabama. I mean, let's let it roll, and their defense is playing well. Yeah, 11 o'clock in the morning in Lexington. Yeah, they've been pretty abysmal. Yeah.
If anyone is living close in Vegas to a casino or any other casino throughout the country watching this with 3 of those clowns all like in Alabama, don't walk, run to the casino, put all your money on Kentucky plus 10.5. You ought to be okay. And you'll be joining me because I'm the only one that likes Kentucky on that spread. Brandon, we've got 2 minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. What else can you share with us about the fourth? It's so hard for me to discuss your book because I've read it and I don't want to give away too much, except I just want to plead for everybody to go to Amazon and get it because it is sensational. The Hero Rules, great. This is even better.
Yeah, I mean, it starts off much faster. Obviously, in the first book, there was some world building that does not have to be done in this one. Yeah, I mean, all the feedback I've gotten has been fantastic. It is a fast-moving book. It starts out great. If you like police procedurals, a little bit of mystery, a lot of thriller, you want to see an authentic police investigation and a cold case investigation, which is a little different. Certainly give it a read. It's good. And I say that humbly. I mean, I've written some stuff that's not very good, but this book is I enjoyed writing it. It was fun to write. I enjoyed reading it.
You're so right. And it's so pivotal that you just said that about the cold case, because this is a cold case book that sets aside from other mystery and suspense things. And it is a page turner. It's a great beginning, but it doesn't drop off. Unfortunately, Brandon, that's all the time we have. I really want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
For Jake Barton in Noonan, Georgia, for Brandon Hughes, also in Auburn, Alabama, I'm Tony Jones. See you next time right here on Talking with Tony.